you, Senator Scott. Mr. Taylor, I want to return to the question of whether indeed Balfour has reformed, improved its practices since 2019. Again, the period of 2013 to 2019 is the period during which the company was, as you've acknowledged, engaged in a scheme to defraud the United States. You made note in your opening remarks of satisfaction surveys that you've undertaken. Is that, in your view, an indicator of improved performance, or what does that signify in your opinion?
It's just one KPI that we pay close attention to because it's direct feedback that comes from our residents through an independent third party. Anytime, as I said, all service members are invited to participate when they move into their new home or their home. Once they take occupancy, they're invited to participate in the survey anytime we're in their home to provide responsible work order. So it's an indicator. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's a pretty good indicator, and we track that and see how it trends over time so that we can take action where we see things are trending in the wrong direction to investigate, why are our scores dropping? What is it about that we need to be paying attention to correct?
Yeah, the reason that I'm skeptical of the satisfaction scores as an indication that you've improved your performance, and this is something that you and your team also raised in interviews before this hearing with the subcommittee staff. If we could have a look, please, at slide 16. Here we have your prepared testimony today at left. We have your predecessor in this role's prepared testimony from February of 2019 at right, testifying before the Senate. Now, just to make sure we have these dates correct, I want us to just clarify that February 2019, when your predecessor made these comments to the Senate, that was still during the period when the company was engaged in a scheme to defraud the United States. Is that correct?
The February 2019, that was still, yes,
yes?
part of the period, yes.
Okay. So here we have your predecessor touting satisfaction scores in sworn testimony before the Senate during a period when the company is engaged in a fraud scheme, falsifying, destroying work orders, lying to the armed services, and the company is touting its satisfaction scores. And then at left here, we have, once again, from your written statements today, the satisfaction scores as an indicator of your company's improvement in performance. Now, 1 to 5 or very good to outstanding, these may not be apples to apples comparisons, but it gets back to the core question. We can close the slide, which is, why should the Senate believe that a company that for 6 years defrauded the government? And I got to say, I'm shocked, Mr. Taylor, that you deny these issues are systemic. They are clearly systemic. In fact, your performance as a company at installations in my state is notorious. Local media have reported on it for years and years and years. Every time I visit an installation, enlisted personnel raise it without me even prompting them to. We've convened entire discussions with enlisted personnel to figure out what's going on. That's why we embarked upon an 8-month-long investigation to understand what's happening. I'm just not sure that you understand what's happening within your own organization. I mean, did your senior executives know that for 6 years the company was engaging in fraud?
No. So
would you know now if your company was continuing to engage in fraud?
Yes.
You would. I'd like to explore just whether or not your management team has the situational awareness to understand what's happening inside your own firm. If we could please turn to tab 13. And while you do that, Mr. Taylor, if you could please tell the subcommittee who is Mr. Thomas Rodriguez and how was he related to you in the organization? Excuse me, tab 12, forgive me. And while you turn to tab 12, please, Mr. Taylor, who is Thomas Rodriguez?
He's a former employee and former facility manager at Fort Gordon.
Okay, he was the facility manager at Fort Gordon in Georgia.
And prior to that, he was a facility, he was a maintenance supervisor at Fort Stewart.
Understood, thank you. So here we have an email from Mr. Rodriguez. So as the facility manager at Fort Gordon, am I correct that perhaps not your direct subordinate, but he's your subordinate, correct?
He's in my chain of command, yes, sir.
That's right. And this email is from February of 2021. So this is 2 years after the conclusion of the period during which Balfour was engaged in this acknowledged scheme to defraud the United States. 2 years later, here's an email from Mr. Rodriguez, your subordinate. I'm not sure you received this email, Mr. Taylor, but you did, Ms. Cook. It was forwarded to you, in which Mr. Rodriguez says that the state of the facilities department at Fort Gordon is, quote, total chaos. He says, quote, words could not describe the total chaos, end quote. He further states that the facilities department at Fort Gordon has been lying to the Army about the condition of the facilities department at Fort Gordon. He says, quote, this is not acting honestly or respecting our third parties, meaning the Army, and treating them with integrity and professionalism, end quote. Ms. Cook, you received this email in February of 2021, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And what action did you take when you received this email reporting that there was total chaos in the facilities department at Fort Gordon, and that, and again, this is from the head of the facilities department at Fort Gordon, and that the facilities department was being dishonest with the Army? What action did you take?
I do not totally recall without reviewing the records, but I do believe I did forward this to up my chain of command.
Okay, did you follow up after forwarding it to see what action was taken?
I believe we had a couple, because it was regarding the FM buildings. It was regarding the facility building, and I do believe I did.
So you followed up. Mr. Taylor, were you aware of this email at the time?
I was not.
You were not aware. So you understand the skepticism. Let's just, again, set the stage here. It's been 2 years since the end of a 6-year period when the company is engaged in a scheme to defraud the United States. At this very moment, February 2021, you're under Department of Justice investigation for being dishonest with the military, for fabricating and destroying work orders. You know you're under investigation. You know you're in hot water. And your subordinate reports that the facilities department at Fort Gordon is in total chaos, and that with respect to the condition of the facility department and its premises, there's a lack of integrity with the Army, and you weren't aware of this, Mr. Taylor. You say that the senior executives at Balfour didn't know that there was fraud ongoing for 6 years, but that you would know if there was fraud ongoing now. How sure are you, Mr. Taylor, that you would know if that misconduct continued to this day? Are you sure?
Well, I think that your interpretation of this email, what you just described, doesn't align with the question that you're asking me.
Okay, well, let me restate the question then, just for clarity. Here we have your subordinate reporting that when he took over the facilities department at Fort Gordon, it was in a state of total chaos, and that the facilities department has been dishonest with the Army, correct?
Where does it say that? Where does it say that?
We got the document here. That's what it says. It says, when I arrived on site, words could not describe the total chaos that was the facilities department at Fort Gordon. You were not aware of this report, correct?
I was not aware of this email.
Okay. My time's expired. Thank you, Ranking Member Johnson, and just to close out, I think it's worth recapping what you were getting into, Ranking Member Johnson, in terms of the structure of revenues. So just for clarity, with our final few moments here, Mr. Taylor, just describe one more time how this incentive fee structure operates, please.
So if you look at the cash flow waterfall for any project, as part of the operating expenses, there's typically a base management fee. It's usually on the order of 2% of revenues. After debt service is paid, after we put away money for capital repairs and replacement, we will qualify for incentive management fees. There's slight differences, but a lot of similarity between the way that each branch of service has negotiated the performance metrics within those. All of them have undergone a revamping in the last 3 years.
And if I might, those incentive fees, for example, the incentive payments that you will receive from that joint fund you've established with the service will be correlated with your performance, and among the metrics of performance will be the timely and successful closure of work orders, correct?
The timely response to emergency and urgent, the timely completion of routine service.
Right, so if there's an issue such as mold, which poses a health hazard, then that's classified differently with a different expectation of successful or timely response than, for example, a routine carpentry issue. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So when we see Sergeant Torres's work order, where he clearly stated in the description that it's mold, and then we see that it was classified as carpentry, that kind of thing could impact your incentive fees, correct? If the company, and this is, I believe, what was going on during the period of the scheme to defraud the United States, misclassification of a request for remediation of mold, which should be more timely acted on, as something like carpentry, will cause you to be paid more in incentive fees by artificially inflating your performance metrics, correct?
If the volume of that activity rose to the level that we would not meet the threshold, that's a correct statement. And it assumes that we didn't identify the error and put in place a correct the error. But again, to achieve the incentive fees, just to be totally transparent, it doesn't mean 100% success to qualify. There are graduated levels depending on that. So 1 or 2 work orders in and of itself being in error would not potentially impact whatsoever our incentive fees.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thanks for that clarification. I want to thank the members who attended this hearing today. I want to thank all of the witnesses in both panels for their testimony and for appearing today before the subcommittee. We will continue to seek remedies for the issues discussed today. Our military personnel, stateside and abroad, sacrifice continually in service to this nation, as do their families. They deserve the very best. It is of utmost importance that they be provided with safe housing, that there be accountability within the department and by those companies responsible for providing that housing. This hearing record will remain open for 15 days for any additional comments or questions by any of the subcommittee members, and with that, this hearing is adjourned.